show is sponsored by Farmer Joe's Fresh Market, located at 1401 Southwest Pine Island Road in beautiful Cape Coral, Florida. No matter whether you want surf or turf, Farmer Joe's has you covered. Alaskan cod fillets on sale this week for $9.99 a pound, or Braveheart tomahawk steaks are $14.99 a pound. Everything you need and more, Lee County's greatest grocery store, Farmer Joe's Fresh Market. Attorney, businessman, political analyst, multimedia commentator, Mr. Ford O'Connell is joining us today. You can find him at FordO'Connell.com, Ford O'Connell on X, and most credible news outlets. I'm Smoking Joe, and welcome to Cracker Culture. Ford in Iowa, Trump was declared the victor 32 minutes after the caucus begun. Ford, this must be the fastest projected victory ever.
It was actually, at least on the Republican side. The caucuses have only been going on since 1972. And not only was it the fastest called race in Iowa history, he also smashed the record for margin of victory, and he won 98 of Iowa's 99 counties. And the only reason why he didn't win all 99 is because Democrats could vote, and he lost the 99th county by one single vote. It was a resounding victory. Donald Trump's in pole position, and he's the presumptive Republican presidential nominee.
Well, in that Arctic weather, they all came out. It was a low turnout, but it was record-setting for Trump. I got a little clip here for you. Let's look at it.
This is time now for everybody, our country, to come together. We want to come together, whether it's Republican or Democrat or liberal or conservative.
Republican frontrunner Donald Trump looking ahead after his decisive victory in Iowa. Trump easily beat his closest competitors, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, who came in a distant second, and former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley, who took third place.
I can safely say tonight, Iowa made this Republican primary a two-person race.
Entrepreneur Vivek Ramaswamy dropped out after coming in fourth, and he's now endorsing Trump.
We're going to do our part now going forward to make sure that America First lives on, to make sure that Donald Trump is successful as the next president of the United States.
New Hampshire is the next contest. DeSantis has already skipped ahead to South Carolina, hoping to build on whatever momentum he may have gotten in Iowa.
We punched our ticket out of Iowa yesterday.
Nikki Haley is banking on a stronger showing next week in New Hampshire to give her campaign a boost.
Iowa is a totally different electorate from New Hampshire. New Hampshire has a lot more mainstream Republican voters, and Nikki Haley has been doing relatively well in the polling in New Hampshire. However, she's still in second place according to the polling, so you really do want to rack up something like a victory or close to a victory in New Hampshire, and that's what she'll be trying to do. But she does face a Donald Trump that has great momentum.
Well, Nikki Haley now saying she will not take the debate stage again unless former President Trump participates. The Republican presidential candidate saying in a statement today that she will take part in the debate only if Trump or President Joe Biden joins it. That leaves Florida Governor Ron DeSantis as the only one scheduled to attend, Steve, Thursday's debate.
Well, Ford, the polls in New Hampshire have President Trump ahead. However, some speculators, we just heard that Nikki Haley is likely to have strong support with voters in New Hampshire. Will it be enough for Haley to continue in the race for second place?
Look, no, Donald Trump is going to win New Hampshire. I think the only question is by how much. I think he probably will win by double digits. Understand why Nikki Haley is sort of surging in New Hampshire. Yes, New Hampshire is very different than Iowa. It's much more libertarian than sort of evangelical. But I will say this, Iowa, once again, is an open primary, which means Democrats can vote. And that is the only reason Nikki Haley has even a modicum of a shot of winning in New Hampshire. That said, let me say something else about Iowa. Thank gosh Ron DeSantis came in second, because if Nikki Haley had come in second, she would have been insufferable.
Right.
And, good for Vivek Ramaswamy, bowing out and immediately endorsing Donald Trump. I think he has a bright political future, and good for him for seeing the writing on the wall when it comes to Donald Trump.
Well, a lot of people have said something like Vivek being the VP choice. I don't see that happening. I think that he probably gets something in the cabinet, but I don't see Trump putting him in as the VP.
I think you're absolutely right. I think that Vivek, when Trump wins, will get something within the cabinet of the administration. But I also think that Vivek is going to be a very powerful surrogate on the campaign trail for Trump, particularly as it relates to younger voters and trying to make the case that Donald Trump is the only option for voters in 2024 because Joe Biden's America is an abysmal mess.
Well, now Governor Ron DeSantis isn't even going to New Hampshire and has headed on to South Carolina. Ford, what's it going to take for DeSantis to concede and get back to doing the business of Florida that we elected him for?
Well, let me start with the fact the Washington Examiner is reporting it's even worse than that for DeSantis. He's not even running ads in New Hampshire, South Carolina, Nevada. Most people leave a race sort of when you run out of money. I think that Ron DeSantis doesn't want to bow out until Nikki Haley bows out. And the reason why I say that is, God forbid something happens to Trump legally or otherwise. You know, Ron DeSantis wants to be in a position, should something happen by the convention, where he becomes the nominee rather than Nikki Haley. But I'll say this, when Nikki Haley bows out, Ron DeSantis will certainly bow out.
I just think it's just the people of Florida deserve better than what Ron's done since he decided to run for president. And, you know, I just don't know if he can go back on some of the things he's done and how he's let a lot of the citizens of Florida down because he chose to run for president.
And look, I think you're right. I think that Ron DeSantis needs to get back to doing the job that we elected him to do. I'm obviously a huge supporter of Ron DeSantis, our governor. I'd like to see him do something very important on property insurance before hurricane season rolls around, because we all know it's only going to be a blink of an eye and we're going to be right back in the middle of hurricane season.
I agree. Well, let's jump over to Texas. Now, Governor Abbott of Texas decided to deal with migrants without allowing federal border agents to interfere, at least at Eagle Pass border crossing. I got a clip here for us. We'll look at that.
Texas and the White House are locked in a bitter standoff on the border. The administration demanding Texas reopen a border park to federal agents after the drowning deaths of 3 migrants. The White House blames Texas for those deaths, saying the state blocked agents from rescuing the woman and her 2 children. But a new DOJ court filing has disproved that narrative, revealing the migrants were already dead when the feds requested access. Meanwhile, Texas is holding firm and refusing to let the feds back in.
They don't tell us where they're sending people, where people are coming across. They don't tell us about criminal activity along the border. They don't tell us who they're letting in, whether it's terrorists or people that have committed crimes. They don't tell us where people are from. We have the obligation to control public lands in Texas. We're a sovereign state, and we plan on defending our borders.
More on this with Texas Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick. But first, let's go to Matt Finn. He's in Eagle Pass with the latest. Hi, Matt.
Good morning, Dana. Yesterday was the deadline the federal government gave to Texas to reopen this park back to Border Patrol agents. As it stands this morning, we have not seen Texas allow the federal government back into this park. And Texas DPS tells me that's because Texas feels it is just better at deterring migrants from crossing the river here into this park, because Texas feels the Biden administration wants an open border.
We're trying to prevent illegal border crossing so that we don't see this loss of life. It's not normal. It's not humane for anyone to cross a river, including children. But it kind of contradicts what we're trying to do. And it really shows how the federal government is attacking Texas for trying to prevent that, because what they want to do, they want to keep the border open.
As part of Governor Abbott's emergency declaration, the state of Texas is also now arresting migrants who illegally cross into this park and this state. And we just want to tell you from our observation on the ground, that is a massive change in procedure in this park, because for nearly 3 years, leading all the way up to this past December, migrants have not only been able to freely cross the river into this park, sometimes they were ushered across the river by the United States and then processed by Border Patrol.
Ford, I don't know what you think about that, but I really like what Governor Abbott's doing of Texas. I think we should have more governors that take a stand against the Biden administration like this.
Look, you're spot on, Joe. Let me make a point. The Biden administration, I want to be clear, is actively facilitating illegal immigration into this country. They're in dereliction of duty. They're not upholding the laws on the books. This crisis is not inherited, as they like to say. It is created by Joe Biden. Joe Biden could stop 80% of the crisis without Congress ever acting. He has the power and the authority to do it, but he just chooses not to do it. Now, hat tip to Greg Abbott, the governor of Texas. This is down in Eagle Pass, Shelby Park, one of the big crossing points. And Texas has said, you know what, we're going to take law in our own hands. And of course, the Biden administration is trying to sue them over this. Now, I think this case, if Texas holds firm, could go all the way to the Supreme Court. And the reason why I say that, it's what I call the goose gander axiom of law. What is good for the goose is also good for the gander. If Democratic states and localities can have sanctuary cities and defy federal law, why can't Texas defy federal law and actually enforce the laws of the books? Hey, look, if you can answer that question, then you're a much smarter lawyer than I am.
Well, you know, I think that it's going to take states to protect their own borders to get a handle on this, because we've let it go too far. We haven't reeled this in a timely fashion, and now we're already overrun with illegals. And you know, how do we back that up? I mean, you can deport all day, but man, that's going to you take 2 years just deporting all the people that come in.
Well, remember this. Right now, it's estimated, because they're cooking the books, but it's estimated that under Biden, we've had 9 million border encounters, okay, meaning illegal crossings, of which he's released 85% into the country. And let me tell you how this works, because I know this from Donald Trump and former ICE Director Tom Homan. If you want to cut down on illegal immigration, you have to do 3 things: deter them from coming, detain them once they're here, and deport them in a timely manner. Joe Biden has deported the least number of people ever for a United States president. So if you don't detain and you don't deport, guess what the message is to the rest of the world? Come here illegally, there are no consequences. You have to make people fear the consequences.
Well, I was reading a report where we have more illegal immigrants coming across the border than we are having in births in the United States. So that's going to change the fabric of America when you've got more illegals coming in than we're reproducing of our own citizens.
That's absolutely true. And also remember, every 10 years when we take the census, that's how we determine the Electoral College for president. And when they count the census, it's not a number of U.S. citizens or green card holders. It's the number of people here. So remember when I say this, illegal aliens vote for president, certainly within the Electoral College. And we know in some blue states and counties, illegal aliens can also vote for local elections. You know the Democrats want to make it so illegal aliens can vote in our federal elections as well.
Yeah, it's interesting. I would like to see more governors stand up. I mean, this is just it's incredible. Of course, you know, Texas and New Mexico and California would be the key states to do it. But you know, I think that we all, Florida and some of these people that's got these sanctuary cities, I mean, if they're wanting to house them, send them all straight there. I agree with that 100%.
Well, the other thing is, you don't just need a governor like Abbott. You also need an attorney general who's going to, you know, stand their ground. The reason why I say this is the reason why a lot of state attorney generals give in to the federal government is because of resources and money. Eventually, the federal government has sort of got you by the long and curlies, because they're just going to keep pounding you to a point where you can't do any other business for your state. And this is a good thing, you know, that's going on in Texas. I'm glad they're standing their ground, because hopefully this will get to the Supreme Court and we'll know if Democrats can have sanctuary cities. Can't we actually enforce the law when the federal government is in dereliction of their own duty? We're going to find out.
Well, it's definitely going to be something to watch. And I give all the respect to Texas and Governor Abbott and the Attorney General Ken Paxton over there. I mean, the state's attorney. Look, I hope that they keep up what they're doing and other people follow suit.
You're absolutely right, but that's what you know. It's not just Abbott. You got to have someone like Paxton too, and that's why it's a tag team effort.
Well, Ford, the CEO of JPMorgan Chase, Mr. Dimon, was in Davos, and he had some complimentary commentary on President Trump. I want to play a clip of that.
I think it's a mistake to assume that everything's hunky-dory. And, and when stock markets are up, it's kind of like this little drug we all feel. Like, it's just great, But remember, we've had so much fiscal and monetary stimulation. So I'm a little more on the cautious side, that we are facing a lot of things in 24 or 25. And we mentioned Ukraine, the terrorist activity in Israel, the Red Sea, quantitative tightening, which I still question if we understand exactly how that works. I don't think we do. How QE actually worked, what the effect of negative, zero rates was for all this time. And obviously the politics, and and then the Ukrainian war is affecting oil, gas, food, migration. So you have all these very powerful forces that are going to be affecting us in 24 and 25. So if I was the government, I would be preparing for what I'm going to do about that, assuming things aren't good. And I just also want to point out, I wish the Democrats would think a little more carefully when they talk about MAGA, and if you travel this country. And the country's unbelievable. We took our bus trip this year, and Leslie Picker was on Spokane and Boise and Bozeman. People are growing. They're hungry to grow. They're innovating. It's everywhere. It's not just Silicon Valley. So we've got this great hand. But when people say MAGA, they're actually looking at people voting for Trump, and they think they're voting, and they're basically scapegoating them, that you are like him. But I don't think they're voting for Trump because of his family values. And if you look, just take a step back, be honest. He was kind of right about NATO. Kind of right about immigration. Mm-hmm. He grew the economy quite well.
China virus.
Tax reform worked. Mm-hmm. He was right about some of China. I don't like what he did.
No, I said China virus.
Yeah, I understand. He may have been right. And I don't like how he said things about Mexico. I don't like, but he wasn't wrong about some of these critical issues, and that's why they're voting for him. And I think people should be a little more respectful of our fellow citizens. And when you guys have people up here, you should always ask the why. Not like it's a binary thing. You're supporting Trump, you're not supporting Trump. Why are you supporting Trump?
It's hard to hate 75 million of your fellow Americans. And
I agree.
It's done
and, the Democrats have done a pretty good job with the deplorables, hugging onto their Bibles and their beer and their guns. I mean, really? Can we just stop that stuff and actually grow up and treat other people with respect and listen to them a little bit?
Well, for Jamie Dimon, which was shocking to me to hear him be so complimentary to Trump, what was your take on that?
This is revolutionary commentary. Let me give a little bit of a background here. Jamie Dimon is the CEO of JPMorgan Chase Bank. That's the largest bank in America. Jamie Dimon is a Democrat. Let's be very clear about that. And what is he saying? He's saying for all the nonsense that the media gives Trump, you may not like the man, you may not like how he says certain things, but he's not wrong on the very issues that your family depends upon, whether it's the economy, whether what he's saying about illegal immigration, China, trade policy, NATO. That is a big thing, NATO. The fact that he's saying this and being so honest. Now, remember, Davos, Switzerland, that's the World Economic Forum. This is the pseudo-Illuminati globalists. And here is one of the key people there saying, you know what? Donald Trump isn't so bad for America. And to me, that was the highest hat tip somebody on the other side could give Donald Trump.
Well, it kind of shocked me, like I said, to see Jamie Dimon come out and speak like that. Like you said, he is basically one of the elite globalists that we discuss. And he's kind of like, look, there's nobody. He don't see nobody that's going to do a better job, I don't believe.
Yeah, and I think that's the point. And people say, well, I care about policy. Well, what happens is Donald Trump gave you great policy. The problem is everyone else got caught up in every other nonsense. And look, that is going to be the Democrats' playbook in 2024. They're going to say that Donald Trump's a dictator. They're going to play up abortion. And then the news media is going to do something very interesting. If you notice, when Trump won Iowa, he gave a very good speech, the type of speech that I think if he could give the entire way through 2024, he'd certainly win the presidency. He's talking about unifying, coming together, being complimentary of Nikki, being complimentary of Ron, not even being that rough on Joe Biden. And, they cut it off on MSNBC because they said we don't broadcast things that are untrue. Well, if you don't broadcast things that are untrue, then Joy Reid should be thrown off the air many years ago. And then on CNN, they had to turn around and say, well, he had some anti-migrant rhetoric. I mean, what kind of nonsense is that? He didn't even mention illegal immigration in his Iowa victory speech. The media is circling the wagons around Joe Biden. They're going to cut Donald Trump off the TV, and they're making it up as they go along. So get ready for a bumpy ride, folks.
Yeah, that like I said, I was very impressed that Dimon come out, and again, I think that people are waking up, and business minded people are saying, look, we struggled through Biden, so I mean, we didn't have it this bad through Trump. It's time to take a stand here, and I think that you're going to see a lot more Democrats coming over to Trump.
Well, what's crazy was at Davos, who else was there? The Republicans' favorite boogeyman, George Soros' son. And George Soros' son was so hacked off that they were saying nice things about Trump. It was unbelievable. I mean, wouldn't the idea to be that we want America to succeed? Apparently, Democrats don't want America to succeed. They only want Democrats to remain in power, and then they want to destroy our Constitution. And look, that's not all Democrats, but that is the Democrats that are in power in Washington, D.C.
Well, I think the more and more that people are exposed to what actually happened during Barack Obama's presidency and Joe Biden's, they yelled Trump at kids in cages and stuff like that. Well, that was a Barack Obama thing before ever Trump inherited that for sure.
Well, yeah, I never laughed harder. Tom Homan, who is the former ICE director, was actually in ICE, I believe, under 6 presidents, and they were going crazy about Trump in cages and this and that. And he said, that's nonsense. I built the cages for Barack Obama when I worked underneath him. And I'll tell you something else. What's so amazing is that the president can unilaterally stop 80% of the problem at the border, given the laws on the books, is that, remember, Barack Obama had an illegal immigration situation like Joe Biden, where, they don't believe anyone's illegal. Well, guess what would happen 1 year before every single midterm and general election? All of a sudden, Barack Obama would halt the flow of illegal immigration and wound up deporting even more people than Donald Trump.
Well, like I said, it just blows my mind. And I'm seeing more and more people that have been primarily Democrat, even in the black community, they're speaking out. We're done with Biden. We're ready for Trump to come back. I mean, it's been quite a shift in what we normally see, where it's just all the deplorables, and we can't stand the mega conservatives and things like that. But you're seeing a lot more. I've seen a lot of interviews, and the Democrats are struggling just like the conservatives.
Look, if Donald Trump gets 15% of the black vote, he will be the 47th president of the United States, particularly in a state like Georgia. Because remember, there's only going to be about 6 states that decide this. Florida's not really in play. The Republicans, Trump's going to win Florida. You have to remember, going back to it, you're looking at Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan, Georgia, Arizona, and Nevada. So what's going to happen here is African Americans in Georgia are going to be a key group. Hispanics in Nevada and Arizona are going to be a key group. So, Donald Trump, if he can, set some different numbers and take some people saying, hey, what are the Democrats offering you? What do you have to lose by voting Republican, particularly after the economy was better under Trump? I think that's going to be the important part. Is a lot of people can say a lot of things about Trump, but the one thing he has is receipts when it comes to the economy. And right now, people are just hacked off about inflation and the prices of everything rising more than 20%.
I'm a Trump supporter, and I'm not one that feels like that I've got to hate somebody because they support somebody else. But I think it's time for people to stand up and really get behind Trump, because we don't have any better options. Haley's not an option. DeSantis has proved by abandoning Florida that I would be afraid for him to be in the White House. And I mean, we can't have Biden staying there. I mean, Trump's the only choice.
Well, if Biden stays in there, remember, it won't be long till Harris is probably the president, because when you look at Joe Biden, it's very simple. The lights are on, but nobody's home. I mean, I think it was the ABC poll that said something like only 28% of Americans think he has the mental sharpness to effectively serve as president. And unfortunately, I got to agree with him. I mean, I don't know what he has. And people say, well, it's his age. You and I all know that different people respond differently at different ages. And the bottom line is Joe Biden's tapped out.
I agree. Well, before we know what time it is, everybody waits for this. It's time for
trash.
Today on the Man's Trash, I'm going to bring up Cape Coral Mayor Stipend John and the City Council, who received a letter from State Representative Mike Lombardo asking them to rescind the stipend that doubled their salary. Well, last week, me and you discussed Council Member Dan Shepard and encouraged him to give back the stipend. Seems it took a state representative to threaten state involvement to persuade him. I'm going to play a little clip of that.
A second Cape Coral City Council member is rejecting the new stipends that essentially double their salaries. Dan Shepard is joining Richard Carr.
Florida State Representative Mike Lombardo is calling on the city council members to repeal the stipend. If not, he says the state might have to get involved.
We want to give them the opportunity to do the right thing, repeal the stipend, because we don't want them to set a precedence for, other cities across the state of Florida.
Representative Mike Lombardo sent this letter to Cape Coral City Council. It asked them to repeal the stipend they voted for last month that nearly doubles their salaries.
The people have spoken. I mean, the council has never had so many people at their meetings. Very upset about how they just completely circumvented the referendum process.
This all comes as a second city council member announced he will refuse to take the stipend. 3 days ago, Dan Shepard posted to Facebook saying he would donate the money to beautification projects across the city. But after the feedback he received, he's backing down.
I'm choosing not to accept it because I've communicated with the citizens of Cape Coral. I put my phone number out there. I told them to call me and let me know their feelings on the topic because I work for them.
Well, Ford, look, I'm glad Dan Shepard gave the money back. I hate that I feel like nothing the citizens said was what persuaded him. I think it was definitely the threat of state involvement. Mike Lombardo, I've got my opinions on him too. I just, he's laid pen to paper before and let it flounder, so we'll just see what happens there. What are your opinions on this?
First of all, Mike Lombardo has said some not very nice things about me in the past, but I'm going to rise above that. And I'm going to give the man a hat tip. When you do a good job like Mike Lombardo did here and did it for the residents of Cape Coral, you know what? Good job, Mike. Keep up the good work. And when it comes to Dan Shepard and Richard Carr, who decide that they're not going to take the stipend, good on them. I wish they'd stood up a little bit faster. But you know what? At the end of the day, it's about results. And if those two stick to their word and don't take it, the three of them honestly should be, how shall I say, our local representatives of the week.
Well, I wouldn't go that far, but I'll let you. No, but, my thing was, I don't know if Dan realizes it wasn't, yes, I'm glad he gave the stipend back. But I think he owes the citizens an apology for what he said when he was going to keep it. He realistically should think about the words and the way that he talked to the citizens at the last Cape Coral City Hall meeting, and he should go back and take that. And I know a lot of politicians, once they put it out there, they won't take it back. I'm glad he gave the stipend back. I still think that it'd be more comfortable if he addressed the citizens of Cape Coral and let them know that, hey, I probably shouldn't have said what I said to you, and I apologize. And I do work for you. And at least he did say in the end that he does work for the citizens, which is, it was a good ending for him there to say that. So, I don't know.
Let's also hope that he takes back some of the words he said when it came to public comment as well. Okay. Right. He did a good job there. But remember, I was tough on him on the public comment because it seemed to me that, some of our local officials in Collier, Charlotte, Lee, etc., they get in there, they get sort of doing a certain thing, and you notice a little bit of entitlement and arrogance. And the words that came out of his mouth the way they did, I don't think he realized how entitled and arrogant he sounded when he said them. I'm glad he's on the right path and making amends, but I do think when it comes to public comment, he needs to go farther versus I went to the bathroom.
Well, and I realistically believe that Dan Shepard was probably the only one that could have gave his money back because I don't think the rest of the council members can afford to give that money back. They probably already spent it. And I say that because Council Member Tom Hayden, who has been very entitled, so to speak, says that he doesn't care what State Representative Mike Gianlombardo says. Let me play a clip of that for you.
I don't care what Gianlombardo thinks. His letter won't change his mind. Neither will angry people who pack council meetings.
This decision's been made. That's where I'm at. I know residents disagree with how I feel about that, but that's where I'm at, and I'm moving forward.
Oh, that just shows the type of representative that he is. Our job is to listen to our constituents. We represent districts, and we represent people in those districts. And when those people are not happy, it's our job to respond or to justify or figure out why they're not happy and then fix it. That is our role.
Hayden told me the state's role is to stay out of local government.
We believe in home rule. We believe this is our issue.
The for me attitude, I think that needs to, that we really, that's what we signed up for. We're here to serve the people, and I think that they need to do their job.
You know, Tom Hayden, which he's not running again, he can care less what the people think, and he's pretty much said that right there. That is a sense of entitlement. And, you know, I've never cared for Tom Hayden. I ain't gonna lie. I've never liked him from the beginning of his political career, and I don't see him going out on top this time. So I think that was very telling of how they feel toward the people, what Hayden said.
Look, I'm all for home rule, but Tom Hayden's hiding behind home rule. That was a very mealy mouth answer, I might add. And if he is running for re-election or was running for re-election, this is the cattle call time to primary him. Because guess what? You've got no better issue than this. You've got something that probably 75, 85% of Cape Coral voters are like, you got to be kidding me when it comes to this. So if you had an issue and you wanted to run to replace Tom Hayden, now's the time to do it.
Well, like I said, I know that Shepard's going to be running again, or he's up to run again, and Hayden said he's going to retire. My problem with this is, you get a good lump of change on the last part of your term, and you're out of here. There's got to be something that the people can do to put a stop to this. And I don't know how many people realize the movement to recall some of these board members, especially the mayor, Stipend John. They're looking to recall him, and there's a big effort in mind. I mean, I think that we need to clean that board up completely.
I agree with you. I guess we're now going to start referring to the mayor from now on as Stipend John. Is that what we're going with?
That's what I'm called.
How long till Wink News or somebody else starts using Stipend John? Anyway, moving on. No, look, I think you're absolutely right. It's about good governance and transparency. And in my opinion, backdooring the people, giving yourself basically doubling your salary without really, in the middle, without people knowing, just that tells me that you shouldn't be in power. Like, you just shouldn't. The fact that you're willing to go along with that, you're violating the people's trust. And look, there needs to be consequences for these bad actors.
Well, I'll tell you what, I would be just happy if they done a breathalyzer on a couple of them board members before every meeting. That would make me happy. Well,
that's the word on the street. I can neither confirm or deny what you're saying, but if that's true, hey, that's more fun.
Give us a blood alcohol level content before they start every meeting. See where we go from there.
Hey, keep an eye out for that.
Well, downtown Fort Myers is talking about getting a Ferris wheel. Now, the city of Fort Myers is looking into putting a Ferris wheel down in the Centennial Park area. And I have mixed feelings on that. I mean, I'd like to see the beautification of downtown, but realistically, at what cost? I mean, that might be a great thing for downtown, but we know with the numerous homeless population we have down in that area, what can go wrong?
Yeah, I have mixed feelings too. I'd like to see the details. I'd like to see the plan. I will say that I have seen this sort of Ferris wheel idea work in other places. It's worked in parts of Las Vegas, London, England, Washington, D.C. I mean, and I've also seen it fail in other parts of the country. What I'm trying to say is this is a good idea. Let's explore it further. Let's see the details. If it's too much, maybe you should do something else. I'll tell you, down in Naples, Hoffman bought that mini golf course, I remember, and putting up those lights in that area and lighting up that area kind of actually pushed out the homeless crowd, and it gave those people, on Tamiami Trail something that helped increase the safety and also was something that families could come and enjoy.
Well, I think Collier County homeless is a little bit different than.
Well, that's true too. I was just trying to give an analogy.
I mean, you go to Collier County, you'll see them, but in Lee County, they make sure you know them. I mean, I pulled up to that park 3 or 4 times and had to be action ready. People coming up to my car door, I'm there with the kids.
Yeah, I understand. I didn't say it wasn't a lot more dangerous and you didn't have to watch your 6. I'm just saying there has been these types of projects in other parts of Southwest Florida, and they seem to work. And look, we kind of need to clean this place up because Centennial Park really has some potential, particularly when it comes to building out and making Fort Myers, much more sought after.
Well, we'll just have to wait and see what the city decides on that. I want to talk about the school district now. While the school district spent millions of dollars and fought to build a school in an area primarily comprised of older retirees that were not having children, the decision was made during the re-election campaign of board member Chris Patrica. The very same year of her re-election was the reason that the Oaks contract was terminated. All political and waste monies in buying steel and properties, architectural design plans, surveys, and attorney's fees, along with the consultant fees from engineering companies, could be estimated between $10 and $20 million. All thrown in the wastebasket as if it meant nothing when federal complaint was filed by advocates. The district then pulled the plug on the project. The complaint is still pending with the Federal Department of Education, but who's going to be held accountable when millions of dollars were wasted? They could have been spent in District 5, 4, or 1 who have high needs. Ford, it really is something, and I talked to you about this before, they had to have that school. Now they don't have to have that school.
Yeah, I think that we need to start thinking about the sunk costs that go into some of these government decisions, because it gets to be a point where the waste is really getting out of control and things that seem very innocuous. And you're right. Those resources could go to District 5. We know District 5 needs the most help, but it could also be spread around other districts, because it's not like all districts of Lee County schools can't be improved.
Well, and I want to encourage people. This is going to be coming up for a vote at this Tuesday's meeting at the Lee County School District. Now, what's also on the agenda is they're going to try to stifle public comment. And if they deem that you are doing something against their public comment, if you're clapping or doing things that they don't want you to do, they're going to permanently ban you from coming in the school district. We've seen Stipend John and Cape Coral trying to shut down public comment the last 2 meetings. Now the school board, because they don't want to hear what the public says, they're going to try to ban people from life. Ford, how is that even fair to the citizens?
It's not.
Especially the ones that's got children in the district.
Yeah, basically they don't want to hear from the constituents, so now they're going to act like socialist dictators and quash free speech. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. And that's truly unfortunate, because if that many people are pissed off, you probably should be listening, because chances are you're not doing a great job.
Well, and this comes to the end of my show. And what I want to really say, Ford, is that we have a lot of these candidates that are placed in positions by TM strategies. We all, if you're a local, I mean, especially following politics, who the ones are that are from that group. That being said, we're not getting candidates to run against to oppose these Millerites because, they're afraid. I mean, they're afraid of getting threatened. They're afraid of being, overrun with false allegations and just, they threaten them with money.
Look, if you don't change the status quo, you don't run in these primaries, you don't challenge them, nothing's going to change. But I do think it's a little bit ridiculous to sort of hate campaigns and side payoffs that they do to make sure that they go unchallenged. If they don't have dirt on you, they then try to find something else. And people need to be very, very aware that when you step in the ring with the Millerites, you better be prepared for them to try to burn down your house.
Well, and I'd encourage anybody that even if you didn't have the thoughts of running for public office, we need some grassroots candidates who have no affiliation with the political machine here in Lee County. We need them in Cape Coral. We need them in the school district. We need them all over Lee County right now. And, you've got Bill Ribble running for Chris Patrica's seat on the school board, but there's nobody, he's got no opposition. And again, this is what scares me. When they can keep the opposition away, then you've got no say. I've said all along in Lee County, your vote doesn't count unless you're voting for a Millerite.
Yeah, look, that's exactly right. Let me say this. What a lot of people should do, honestly, is 5 or 6 people should run, say, against Jenna Persons, for example. Okay? Because if it's 5 or 6, then they can't threaten all of you. And eventually someone's going to win, not named Jenna Persons. That's how this works. And if you're not going to step up to the plate and get a few people, you want to know what? You should get other people to run and say we should all run, because that is what our constitutional Republican democracy is about. And unfortunately, in Lee County, we don't have that. It is basically by threat or hook or crook. And that's how it works.
That's 100%. Well, I'm going to end the show on that note. That's pretty powerful. Ford, I want to appreciate you folks. Y'all need to be at Tuesday night school board meeting and speak up to say basically your right to free speech and to question why your money is being wasted on schools that had to be but are no longer needed. And then Cape Coral on Wednesday night. I think that people should continue to go and express their concerns about this stipend and what this board is doing to the community. They see it as chaos and us fighting. I see it as it's time for people to stand up and take our Florida back. Ford, thank you, my brother. I appreciate seeing you again this week.
You got it, my friend.
I guess we'll talk after New Hampshire.
You got it.
All right. Folks, we love you. Love, peace, and gator grease. I'm Smoking Joe with Ford O'Connell. We'll see you next time.